All right, Jim, as I said earlier, more questions next week, we promise, but why don't we wrap things up with some Guess the Program, a very popular segment here on the show. Are you up for it today?
I, in my borderline mystical way, will determine the year and the location of the card that you mentioned without ever knowing that ahead of time, because I'm like that.
How do you feel today? You feel like you're up for the task?
I'm feeling pretty good. I didn't do too bad. I nailed one a couple of times ago. I'm not doing too bad last time. I'm feeling confident. Give it 2 out of 3. I'm going to get 2 out of 3 right off the bat.
Well, we have more than 3 here, but let's.
I'm just saying. I'm gonna predict. I'm gonna get 2 out of 3.
All right, I'm going to go from main event on down for this card. The main event is a tag team match, or it's actually a triple main event now that I look, but a tag team match. Best 2 out of 3 falls, 60-minute time limit. The Donovan brothers, Red and Doug, versus Greg Peterson and Larry Shane.
Jesus.
There'll be an intermission with lucky numbers announced. Best 2 out of 3 falls, 60-minute time limit. Tex Riley versus Billy Wicks.
Oh, boy. Okay.
One other outstanding match, one of the Donovan brothers will tangle with Greg Peterson or Larry Shane in the bout. It will be announced at ringside.
Well, the natural inclination is for this to be Memphis, Tennessee. There is an element of possibility that you would throw in, considering Greg Peterson and Larry Shane and potentially Billy Wicks, that you would throw in something from Mobile, Alabama. But I don't know that that would be likely. Doug Donovan later on became one of the Von Brauners, did he not?
You would know better than I.
And obviously, Tex Riley, a longtime Tennessee babyface hero. Billy Wicks, the guy that Sputnik Monroe drew those 2 record houses that we talked about earlier against in Memphis. But Tex Riley against Billy Wicks, if this was Memphis, they would both be baby faces. But was this a tournament match? Possibly. I'm going to say, you son of a bitch. Just Mobile, Alabama, 1958.
You know, I guess because you've lost so much weight, you can't really go with your gut as much as you used to. Memphis, Tennessee.
God damn it.
Monday night, March 9th, 1959.
See, I knew that Wicks was in Mobile in 58. Why was Tex Riley wrestling Billy Wicks?
Sputnik Monroe will return here next Monday and has demanded a championship match with Jesse James or Billy Wicks, both holders of sectional titles. Beat a wrestler, win $100 or $1 per minute in ring. Promoter Buddy Fuller announced this week that any of the spectators who wish to challenge a wrestler may do so. The spectator will be paid $1 for every minute he could stay with the wrestler, or $100 if he wins. But that's a dangerous stipulation.
No, the Fullers used to love that shit. That was an old trick to basically get some goddamn credibility for the business. And remember this, they were just getting to the hot period. Sputnik had just gotten there in December, and they were starting to draw crowds. But they had been on their ass for the previous year and a half, so Buddy Fuller loved to do shit like that. It would get interest, it would cause talk, and it would get credibility for the wrestling business. And they would pick whoever on the card that was the legitimate guy against whatever. No college wrestling standout usually was going to fucking show up on one of these things. But remember, that's how in Columbus, Georgia, Tim Woods lost half of one of his fingers. Fucking Soldier from what is the Army base down there near Columbus, Georgia? Whatever. He got up there and they were supposed to just wrestle, but he started being a goddamn smart ass apparently, and Woods started to hook him and got his finger close enough to the guy's mouth. The guy bit half of Woods's finger off. And then apparently Woods went to town on him, and many of his service buddies were there, and it created a scene. So this was 1959 in Memphis. That was somewhere in the late 60s, I think, in Columbus, Georgia, maybe early 70s. So by that point, they had kind of given up doing shit like that.
All right, Jim, let's go to what it says here. B&S kosher-style restaurant and delicatessen. Finest corned beef and cabbage, bakery sandwiches, and complete dinner. Kosher style. So they don't want to pay the rabbi. That's what that means. Not kosher, but kosher style. Jim, let's go to this next one here. Here we go. This is an interesting one. The card. There are 6 main events on this card. The first main event.
Does it actually say that 6 big main events?
No, it says first main event, second main event, third main event, fourth, and so on and so forth. The first main event, Dick Hutton versus Steve Stanley. 1 fall, 20-minute time limit. The second main event, Buddy Rogers versus Ilio DiPaolo. 1 fall, 20-minute time limit. The third main event, Yukon Eric versus Sky High Lee.
They weren't kidding.
1 fall, 20-minute time limit.
Main events.
Fourth main event, Vern Gagne versus Wilbur Snyder.
Christ.
1 fall, 30-minute time limit. The fifth main event, Whipper Billy Watson versus Swede Carlson. 1 fall, 30 minutes. And finally, the sixth main event, 1 fall to a finish, Lou Thez versus Baron Gattoni.
Good Lord. Okay. Where do we start? I mean, I thought there was a promotional rib from a hyperbolic booker, but Dick Hutton was the guy who would succeed Thez as NWA champion in the late 50s, but not succeed as champion. Unfortunately, Steve Stanley was one of the top heels in the country at one point in time in the mid-50s. Buddy Rogers, I don't need to go any further. Ilio DiPaolo was a legend in Buffalo, New York, and in the Northeast had a restaurant. Yukon Eric, one of the top babyface attractions in the business in the late 50s, and the guy that Killer Kowalski, his knee drop potatoed Yukon Eric's cauliflower ear off. Sky High Lee, one of the early giants in the business. This was probably late in his career because he started in the late 30s, was already a name in California in the early 40s. Gagne and Snyder would have been the hot United States heavyweight title program or close to between two of the greatest scientific wrestlers of the mid-50s off the Chicago TV. Whipper Billy Watson, former NWA champion, and what is he number 2 or number 3 on the all-time Canadian draw list with the Sheik and Jacques Rougeau Sr., maybe. Poor Swede Carlson's a job guy in this mix. And then Thez against Baron Gattoni, who again was kind of a Baron Leone offshoot that was a top heel in the mid-50s. This, goddamn, I got the vibe that it should be this is in the Northeast somewhere. And at the same time as it might be a wonderful Chicago International Amphitheater card at some point, I don't see all those names there, all these names there at the same time. Could this have been Hutton in a preliminary like that? Because he didn't last long in the business after he lost the NWA title. And Rogers against Elio DiPaolo with Thez on top indicates that this is, I think it's, and Gagne Snyder, it's the mid-50s. Why do I think of Buffalo, Montreal, or Toronto?
Is it the food?
It could be the gas I got from the food. And Jesus Christ, this is tough because this is some kind of mega card that some promoter is putting on that wants to prove a point. Buffalo, New York, the War Memorial Auditorium, 1956.
Wow. The Parade of Champions, Wednesday, November 21st, 1956. The Memorial Auditorium, Buffalo, New York.
Boom!
Wow.
Boom!
I thought you would trip up on this. That's so impressive. All right.
Boom, because I knew they were out of the Midwest because of DiPaolo and Gattoni and Billy Watson and Elio DiPaolo being on the show against Buddy Rogers. It just stuck in my head and I couldn't get away from it. So, okay, I'm 1-1, baby.
All right. I know you're excited. Stop beating up the desk. But, Jim, let's get back to this next card here. The first match, one fall, 30-minute time limit. Billy Goals versus Gino Angelo. The semifinal, 2 out of 3 falls, 45-minute time limit. Gypsy Joe versus Kurt Stenke. And the main event, and it appears to be, I will give you what's listed and I'll give you the corrections that were put in. What's listed is the Volkov brothers versus Angelo Poffo and Hans Schmidt, 2 out of 3 falls, 60-minute time limit. What's written in for the Volkov brothers are the Gilbert brothers, and what's written in for Hans Schmidt is Bronco Lubitsch.
Well, the Gilbert brothers, was that, oh, God damn, was it Doug and Johnny?
I'm actually not sure.
Why am Johnny Gilbert maybe a game show announcer? The Volkovs was the original.
That's the guy from Jeopardy. That's right.
Yeah. The Volkovs, the original Nikolai Volkov, right? And his brother Boris.
I believe so.
Gypsy Joe was not the Tennessee Gypsy Joe that wrestled well into his elderly years, but the Chicago Gypsy Joe. Billy Gills is a journeyman that was wrestling in the 50s in the Midwest. Gino Angelo, did he work as the brother of Martino Angelo, or was he just using the name? And obviously Angelo Poffo, the father of Randy Savage and Lanny Poffo, and Hans Schmidt, even though he wasn't there, was the top German heel of the early 50s off the Chicago TV, the first German heel after the war. And Bronco Lubitsch would later on be the kindly old referee in World Class, but he would, in between his wrestling days and his refereeing days, he was a manager. Having said all that, because this is a 3-match card, I think it is somewhere in the Chicagoland area, not the International Amphitheater, but something like, is it one of the smaller clubs around, the Rainbow Arena or whatever? So Marigold. As far as a year, I'm going to say 1957 somewhere. No. 1956 somewhere in the suburbs of downtown Chicago.
The date? Tuesday, December 16th, 1958.
Ah!
The promoter, Balk Estes, the Hammond Civic Center, Hammond, Indiana.
Hammond, Indiana. There you go. I'm still correct because that's 40 fucking miles.
All right, Jim, let's go to...
I got the place. I missed the year. So that's 1.5 out of 3. I'm tied.
All right. This next one here, Jim, a special lights out match. Terry Garvin versus T.G. Stone. The Mongo and Hacksaw Higgins.
Wait a minute, the what? The who?
The Mongo.
The Mongo, not Mongol?
Nope, it says Mongo.
Okay, Mongo.
And there's an article here that also calls him Mongo, so it's the Mongo and Hacksaw Higgins versus Jim Gorman and Tug Taylor.
Oh, you motherfucker.
The Ox, I don't know what caused that. The Ox versus Crazy Luke Graham. The Grapplers versus Jannetty and Rogers. And finally, the main event for a title I won't name, the champion Buzz Tyler versus the challenger Ted DiBiase.
Okay, well, we perked up a little bit. The Mongo, I've got no earthly clue. Hacksaw Higgins was Larry Higgins, and spent a little time. He was in Mid-South for a brief period of time in '84. Jim Gorman has been lost to time. Tug Taylor was Tugboat Taylor, who was based out of Texas for years and years. His son was a wrestler.
Oh, you know what? I missed the match. I apologize.
Give me another one.
Another title match, the champion Gypsy Joe versus David Peterson.
Okay, and this Gypsy Joe is the Tennessee Gypsy Joe. And the Ox versus Luke Graham, is this Ox Baker? Or can you tell, or are there any pictures? I don't think that it would be, but just in case.
There are no pictures that say, or that show it, and I don't see any pictures that say, or there's nothing in here that indicates it's Ox Baker.
Yes, nothing indicates that. So Luke Graham, this was maybe the last year or so of his full-time career. He worked some indies in Georgia because he was from Georgia after this. The thing that really tells you is the Grapplers, Jannetty and Rogers. Is that Tommy Rogers? Jannetty and Rogers?
It is Tommy Rogers, but not the famous Tommy Rogers, I don't believe.
It's the Grappler and Buzz Tyler and Ted DiBiase were in the Central States. And my only problem is trying to figure out, the Grapplers had gotten together, Tony Anthony and Lynn Denton. The first time they got together was in Tennessee, and that was in '83. They were not a team before that. So I'm thinking that this is Kansas City, Missouri. And again, with Buzz Tyler, I'm thinking it's late 1983 or early 1984 in Kansas City.
The date? Thursday, August 23rd, 1984, Memorial Hall, Kansas City, Kansas.
Okay, I was a few months off.
All right, I'm going to give you, before we wrap things up with a couple that may be a little more difficult, I'll give you an easy one.
Oh, boy.
The opening contest, Jay Youngblood versus Matty Suzuki. Rocky Montero versus the Alaskan. Tony Russo versus Playboy Buddy Rose. And the final preliminary, Ricky Hunter versus Sergeant LaBouffe. A special...
That's LaBouffe to you.
A special tag team match. Tommy Samoa and Dutch Savage versus Apache Bull Ramos and Jesse the Great Ventura. And the main event, for a title I won't name, Terry Funk, the champion, versus Jimmy Snuka.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you, Jay Youngblood, everybody knows he was one of the Youngblood family who he was most famous for teaming with Ricky Steamboat. In that team, Matty Suzuki was an Asian heel for years in a variety of places. The Alaskan, who knows, it could have been Jay York, it could have been Mike York, it could have been Frank Monty. Buddy Rose is a tip-off on where we are. And so is Dutch Savage, Bull Ramos, and Jesse Ventura, all well known in the Portland Don Owens territory, but of course, none better than Jimmy Snuka, who this was probably. Would he have gotten a shot at the NWA world title, Snuka, before this? Maybe in Dallas, or was that. This was before Dallas, right? Well, you can't tell me.
I'm not allowed to help you.
You're not allowed to say. I don't know who Tommy Samoa was. Was that Coco Samoa? One would.
I actually
wonder?
don't. I'm not sure. I don't think so based on the picture in here, but I'm not certain. But I don't.
Well,
think so.
We're in Portland, Oregon. We know that much. And I'm going to divine the year by a very strange method. Soldier LeBoeuf. The reason why that he was Soldier LeBoeuf is because he was part of the Legionnaires in Indianapolis when they were the WWA Tag Team Champions for Dick the Bruiser in 1975. And LeBoeuf, who was later on would work as the Russian Stomper, and goddamn, what was he? Was French Canadian, but he replaced Don Fargo as Jacques Goulet, Sergeant Jacques Goulet's tag partner, when Fargo did another one of the things Fargo usually does and left in the middle of the run. And Soldier LeBoeuf came in to replace Private Fargo. But by November 76, Soldier LeBoeuf was working as the Russian Stomper in the Goulas territory in Tennessee. So, since Terry Funk won the NWA title in December of 1975 and lost it in February of 1977, I'm saying we're in Portland, Oregon in 1976.
Jim, the Portland Sports Arena. Don Owen presents October 16th, 1976. And it was indeed an NWA World Title match for Jimmy Snuka.
Boom!
And there's
there you go.
Bicentennial imagery here on this page. Over here. All right, Jim. This one's really tough. I'll give it to you last. First preliminary, Don Arnold versus K.O. Murphy. One fall, 15-minute time limit. Beat the Champ, one fall, 15 minutes. Sandor Szabo versus Wilbur Snyder.
Ooh.
A special attraction, one fall to a finish. Sky High Lee versus Pat Fraley. Intermission match. Whatever that means. Is it during the intermission?
Yeah, get up and goddamn go piss and get your popcorn. This thing's going to suck.
One fall, 15 minutes. Barney Bernard versus Vic Christie.
The Chest. Barney the Chest Bernard.
The semifinal event. Best 2 out of 3 falls, 45-minute time limit. Leo Garibaldi versus Jungle Boy.
You didn't know Perry was that old, did you?
And the main event, best 2 out of 3 falls, 1 hour time limit. Nicky Bockwinkel versus Billy Varga.
Okay, well, we are in either Los Angeles or Hollywood, however you want to describe it, depending on the venue, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be Los Angeles. Sandor Szabo was a big name in the business in the 40s and 50s and finished his career in the Southern California area, as I recall. Wilbur Snyder, after he got over on the Chicago television, spent I think, a couple of years in the Southern California territory and was a major name. And the Beat the Champ title was one of the championships that they had in the territory. Sky High Lee, we just talked about, one of the first giants. And again, he had been around. I have programs of him in the Southern California territory in the early 40s. Vic Christie was the brother of Ted Christie, the Christie brothers, not only a babyface tag team, but notorious ribbers inside the business. Barney the Chest Bernard, hence because he had the big chest expansion. And Leo Garibaldi and Count Billy Varga, two Southern California mainstays. Billy Varga is on a ton of 60s TV shows, situation comedies. He was on the Munsters. If they needed a wrestler or a referee of some kind, chances are it was Billy Varga. And of course, Nicky Bockwinkel was a mere pup back in these days and had just started, but he was the son of Warren Bockwinkel and was always billed as a native of Woodland Hills, California. So we're at the Olympic Auditorium. The problem is, what year? And I've got to think, just to pick one out of three, it's somewhere between 1955 and 1957. So I'll say 1956.
Jim, it's the Olympic Auditorium, Los Angeles, California, March 15th, 1957.
Ah, shit.
Welcome home, Leo Garibaldi. This popular member of the wrestling Garibaldi clan will be making his first appearance at the Olympic Auditorium tonight after being discharged from the U.S. Air Force. 20 years old. So there's this program. All right, I'll give you this one. This one may be quick. Billy Parks versus Indian War Cloud. Coach John Heath versus Don Hartnett. Crusher Swede Carlson versus Paul Adam. Ray Vilmer versus Tiger Joe Tommaso. And the main event, for a tag title I will not name, Kurt and Carl Von Bronner, accompanied by their manager, Gentleman Saul Weingroff, the tag team champions, versus Ramon and Alberto Torres.
Okay. Well, Indian War Cloud and Billy Parks give me no help at all, as did John Heath's opponent. What was his name?
It is Coach John Heath versus Don Hartnett.
Yeah. And Paul Adam, I don't know. John Heath, which led me down the path of Florida, was Coach John Heath, who was later on an integral part of the Florida Championship Wrestling office. He did some commentary, but he ran some local towns. He was an amateur wrestling advocate and coach, in the state of Florida. Swede Carlson, traveling heel. He was on another one of these cards. As a matter of fact, who the fuck was on the other card? He was on that big show in Buffalo in 56. Ray Vilmer is another journeyman that was a name recognized in the 50s and into the 60s. Tiger Tommaso was one of the assassins that Bobby Heenan broke into the business managing. And then Raymond and Alberto Torres, along with their brother Enrique Torres, were huge baby faces all over the South. And Enrique Torres had a big run in Southern California also.
As a world champion.
Yeah. And the Von Brauners and Saul were together from 1959 till 1973. So that narrows this down a bit. But because the Torres brothers were big in Georgia, I wanted to say Georgia, but with John Heath on the card, I'm thinking we're in Florida. And the von Brauners in 1960, 61, 62, that window of time, were the dominant heel tag team down in Florida. And they worked a lot of deals with Eddie Graham, who was just getting over as a talent at that same time and getting into the office. We're in Tampa, 1961.
Jim, the promoter, Al Ritchie.
Uh-oh.
We are in Miami, Florida.
Son of a bitch.
Tuesday, January 14th, 1964.
Oh!
This is the new era. Tonight marks the beginning of a new era in the Florida wrestling industry. An entire new promotional group, including Miami promoter Al Ritchie, will strive to bring you the finest in wrestling talent available anywhere in the United States. So this is not Eddie Graham's office.
Son of a bitch.
Or I guess wasn't even Eddie Graham's yet in 64, was it?
Well, but now the question is, John, was this when the Florida office was forming?
Here in the near future, Bruno Sammartino, Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion, watch all newspaper advertising.
Okay, bullshit.
Gentlemen, Saul Weingroff for president. All right, let's go to one last. Let's end on a difficult one, just because you have had too much of an easy time lately. You're doing too well with ones that should be tough. This one, Jim, moving from a board. The first event? Question mark. The semifinal.
Okay.
The semifinal? Question mark.
What?
And finally, the main event. A question mark.
What?
This will be an extra Wrestle Royal. The Cowboys accident, and I believe it's Cowboy, yeah, right here. We are sorry to tell you, but Cowboy Luttrell has been injured in an automobile accident and cannot be here tonight. We do not know how badly he was hurt. The last report we heard was that he was bruised and badly shaken up, and the doctors say some of his ribs may be broken. Even though there are times when we wouldn't care if Cowboy did get his ornery neck twisted in the ring, we hope he will be all right, and I'm sure we would all like to see him again soon. The Cowboys accident knocked our main event for a loop, so the promoter, I will not name, put together something they think the fans will like, a Wrestle Royal, with 6 wrestlers and the referee in the ring at
An
once.
order of elimination determines the next 3 matches.
And the 6 wrestlers: Jim Clinstock, Gordon McKenzie, Elmer Estep, Ray Eckert, Bill Bartush, and Wendy Black.
What? How is that? How's Wendy spelled?
It's spelled the way you would think it would be spelled. That's why I'm looking. There's no pictures. There's just lots of question marks.
Okay. And that was Jim Clinstock, not Jay Clinstock, right?
Jim, that is correct.
Okay. Jay Clinstock was a Native American descent wrestler that got killed in a dispute in a dentist office in North Carolina in the late 40s. I have the newspaper clippings. Ray Eckert is probably the biggest name of any lasting legacy on this show. He was a top babyface that traveled around various places through the probably mid 40s to the late 50s, early 60s. Elmer Estep was a name. Billy Bartush was a name. Cowboy Luttrell was the biggest name of this whole thing, who was hurt, but since he was later on, I mean, Luttrell was promoter at one point. I believe he promoted Chattanooga, Tennessee for a period of time, and he promoted in a variety of different places, but he was the guy that eventually Eddie Graham took over from in Florida. in the 60s. But if he was wrestling at this point, this has got to be in the 40s. And there's almost no way to determine where this could be. And really, a year on top of that. So now that I've admitted defeat in most every way, tell me the promoter and then see how close I can come to the goddamn location.
It just says Mr. Terry.
Mr. Terry is the promoter.
Mr. Terry is the promoter.
You sure it's not Mystery?
It's Let me see if there's anything else that says anything about the promoter beyond Mr. Terry. I mean, there's jokes in this program. The Tramp says, "Would you please help a poor man whose wife is out of work? Before marriage, bushels of kisses. After marriage, a few measly pecks." Truth.
Well, that's because of the measly pecker, though.
Truth, crushed to earth, shall rise again. The eternal years of God are hers. But error rise in pain and dies among his worship.
What are you fucking saying?
These
to
are the
me?
things that randomly appear in this program. I can't find the promoter's name beyond Mr. Terry.
All right, I have no idea what the fuck's going on here. This is the first one I've ever had to throw up my hands and not even make a guess. I don't know what to say.
Jim, the date, October 24th, 1939.
Jesus.
The Roanoke Auditorium, Roanoke, Virginia.
Good Lord. Roanoke, Virginia, one of my old hometowns.
Well,
that's that was something.
Well, there it is. Guess the program. You know, I really do love the fact that we hear from a lot of listeners who say, I don't know any of these people you guys are talking about, but based on what Jim explains, how he explains his thought process, what he talks about, I learned so much about people I never would have known before. So that's Guess the Program.